It is time for my Masters Toronto Pickems. There will be groups for both the Valorant esports and VLR in the pinned comment. So if you want to join the Pickems, then go ahead and do it. But here we go. We got the Pickems for Masters Toronto. I guess we get started. If you do it here on the website, you get to create a group. So hopefully I will be able to do that. Yep, make picks for Swiss. Okay. Cool. Pick 4 teams to advance. Your first pick will earn bonus points if they advance undefeated 2-0. Ooh, okay. So, for those of you who don't know, here are the games. Team Heretics, Paper X, Billy, Team Liquid, Sentinels, Wolves, Gen.G versus MIBR. So, I need a team that I feel confident about being 2-0. The way Swiss works, of course, that's actually pretty hard to predict. Because, for instance, you might look at like, okay, Santa playing Wolves, right? They're going to be pretty heavy favored for that game. But then what if they play like Team Heretics? The Swiss draw could really, screw you a little bit here. You know what? I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go Team Heretics. I think a lot of people will go Sentinels here, which I think is perfectly reasonable. But hey, you know, we're supporting Wolves here, so I'll go Team Heretics instead. But yeah, probably the wise choice is probably Sentinels. I do still think Sentinels will make it through, so I'll still put them going through just there. We need 2 more teams. I don't know if this is just me. I'm feeling quite good about MIBR. Personally, I think that MIBR are being a little bit underrated right now. I actually feel pretty good about them. You know, I think they'll win that first game. I guess we're not doing the picks of the actual games here. But, you know, spoiler, I think they'll beat Gen.G in that first game. So I guess, I'm going MIBR. Although I think they'll probably be a 2-1 type deal. And I'm going to surprise you here as well. Because, of course, I am a Wolves fan. You know, I will be supporting Wolves at this tournament. But I'm not going to go Wolves. I'm going to go BLG. I'm going to go BLG. And I'm going to go a little bit wild and have that as my picks for Swiss, which I know seems a little bit strange. Let me explain why BLG. Well, of course, they're playing against Team Liquid, who, you know, are being nerfed somewhat. And it's why the reason you should wait, you know, time towards the end of this to actually do these pick'ems. Obviously, Liquid are a little bit nerfed without Nats for that game, so I think that BLG might actually even be favored for that game right now. And then a gut feeling. You know, we've seen it happen before. I mean, you know, we saw it happen to FNS. Why not? Why can it not happen again? Okay, we're going to create a leaderboard. This is going to be called TMV's Fools. TMV's Fools. There it is. Create. Okay, and so here we are on VLR. So again, we're going to have the same 4 teams that we had before, being my 4 teams just there. I will also give you a prediction of who I think will finish in the top 3 and how I think the tournament will go overall. But first, let's talk about the actual games, right? And just talk about, you know, some of the things that we might expect from these games. And let's start with Gen.G versus MIBR. And the first thing that's quite interesting about this game is that both teams previously were banning Fracture, right? So where the bans might go, the map veto for this game could be all over the place, because who knows, you know, maybe one of them will just take up Sunset as their ban now. Maybe they'll ban some other maps that they've been struggling on. If we take a look at Gen.G's overall map pool, you know, you've got some strengths like Lotus and Pearl, weaknesses maybe in Ascent and Split, and obviously Sunset we don't know. If we take a look at MIBR, again, a similar weakness on Split. Now, MIBR's big strength is Icebox, and I think if I was Gen.G coming into this first game, you know, MIBR don't know about Sunset, I would just be banning Icebox for this first game. And then you'd feel pretty good about potentially, you know, taking a look at the rest of this map pool. I think that Gen.G can definitely look at Lotus and Pearl as maps that they can win. You look at some of the defensive win rates here for MIBR, not great. So I definitely think that Gen.G should be able to win a map. But if they don't ban Icebox, I also think that MIBR should be guaranteed that one. So as I said earlier, I am going to pick MIBR. I do think that this requires Gen.G to maybe mess up their map veto a little bit by not banning Icebox. But again, this map veto is going to be very, very fascinating, because now both teams potentially have a 7 map pool or potentially have changed their permaban. Okay, now let's talk Team Liquid versus BLG. So for Team Liquid, they were always banning Pearl. You can see that they haven't played it a single time. Strengths include Lotus and Split as their main 2 best maps. For BLG, they had kind of gone back and forth in terms of what they're banning. They might ban Split, which I think would be a pretty good idea against Liquid, but they might ban Haven as well. Either of those 2 I think would be a fine ban. Getting a pretty bad ban here for BLG, right? Because I've got Pearl as their best map essentially, and that's going to, Team Liquid will definitely ban Pearl no matter what. There is still some potential here for BLG to find a map that they might win on, but even without Nats, this actually could be closer than you might expect. So overall, for this game, BLG versus Team Liquid, I'm going to say it does go to a full 3 maps, but I am still going to go for BLG because Team Liquid are playing without Nats. Okay, let's move on to Sen versus Wolves. In this one, Sentinels are, I think, going to gain a pretty big advantage because they were permabanning Fracture before, but obviously that is now gone. They have some pretty big strengths like Pearl in their map pool as well. And for Wolves, well, there's some weaknesses here. Now, Wolves before were basically just banning based off their opponent. They already were banning, the different maps, which actually I think when the map pool changes, actually a bit of a nerf, which obviously isn't great here for Wolves. Could Wolves, potentially sneak out like a Split or a Haven win? Like, yeah, those maps have been okay, but not amazing for Sentinels so far this year. So yeah, it's possible they might be able to win one of those maps. However, I do think that it's looking pretty bad for Wolves overall, but nevertheless, I'm gonna pick them. And then finally, we have Pickems versus Team Heretics. And for Team Heretics here, it's quite interesting. And this could be a pretty good advantage for Pickems, right? Because their best map, Team Heretics, is Haven. But Pickems have mainly been banning Haven throughout Stage 1. So this map will almost certainly be gone. Which, all of a sudden, when you take away Haven from Team Heretics, the rest of their map pool, either isn't that tested like their Pearl, or, maybe hasn't been quite as strong like their Split. And I think for a team like Pickems, who obviously have been dominating on Lotus more recently, there is potential here, right? Lotus and Icebox could potentially find their way into the map pool and could be pretty decent maps for both teams. So those would be quite interesting. Might end up with a very kind of similar map pool. Obviously, both of these teams in the past as well were both very good at Sunset. So we could get a banger Sunset game as well, right? This could be a very tight, closely contested game. However, I am going to go for Team Heretics, mainly because Team Heretics were another one of those teams that was primarily banning Fracture, and I think because of that, yes, Pickems will ban Haven, Team Heretics' best map is gone, but Team Heretics can kind of choose where this map veto is going to go, because essentially now they've picked up a free map ban, and so they can kind of pick whatever map they want to target Pickems on in terms of anti-straying, and just get rid of one of Pickems' better maps that they don't want to deal with. And now we're going to talk about who I think my top 3 teams will be at the end of Masters Toronto. Now, of course, this could change because I am going to include some Swiss teams in here, and maybe by the time we get to the playoffs, those teams aren't even in the playoffs anymore, right? And I'll update this as we go, potentially, and do my playoff pick'em. But for now, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say in 3rd place is Team Heretics. I'm going to say in 2nd place, and I do want to point out that so far we have done 7 internationals since partnership began, and in none of those internationals there has been a regional versus regional final. There has not been a single one. I'm going to say that changes here, and in Masters Toronto we get G2 beating Sentinels in the final, the first, and it pains me to do that, as someone from EMEA, that does pain me to say that, but I think that is what we're going to get, and G2 do beat Sentinels in the grand final. So those were my pick'ems, and you can go and join the groups in both the Valorant esports.com and the VLR in the pinned comment down below. So go and join them, and we'll see who's smarter, shall we? We'll see who gets these pick'ems right. I know you're all doubting BLG, but I don't care.